Suzanne Stout, founder and CEO of Vinco Bar Exam Coaching, and welcome to Beyond the Bar Exam Week 3. I know I say this every week, but I'm super excited for this week's guest, my friend Gil Bayonne, who is a Vinco alum, of course, and an amazing criminal law and immigration and expanding into other areas attorney. He's going to tell us all about that today. So welcome, Gil. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. Can't complain.
I'm so excited for everyone to hear more about what you're doing. Like, I had such a front row seat to the start of this part of your career, and it was really exciting to watch. And I think it'll be really helpful for people who may be feeling like a little bit stuck, wanting to make this move, all of that. I think this will be a really great story for them. So first, why don't you start with like, what's the name of your firm? What do you do? How long have you been doing it? That kind of stuff.
Sure. The Bayonne Firm is my firm. We opened up in April, basically at the heart of the pandemic. We do criminal defense work. We also do immigration work and removal defense, family petitions. We also do some personal injury work as well. That's kind of our focus areas. When the pandemic started, and around June, we started representing protesters on a pro bono basis, and that kind of grew our audience a bit. That's pretty much what we do for the most part.
So yeah, who doesn't want to start a business right in the middle of like a pandemic while the whole world is closed? So wow, that's crazy that you're going to be coming up on a year, like in the not so distant future of having the firm open.
It feels like yesterday. At first, prior to that, I worked at the DA's office, I always wanted to open my own firm, but obviously, I just had to get some experience first, and I think now is a great time to be open.
Yeah. So talk about when you went to law school, was the goal to open your own firm? Was that the plan going into it, or did you have a different plan and then shift?
I always wanted to open my own firm. Some of my mentors are sole practitioners and criminal defense attorneys. And I always loved the freedom and flexibility, the ability to do things on your own terms, to kind of control your own narrative is something that I've always been big on. But I did know that I needed to get some experience first.
Yeah.
And so I did that at first. But definitely, opening up my own practice, I always used to say that, freedom was a goal for me in going to law school, was getting a skill set so that I could, do things on my own terms.
Do you think that you could go back and work for someone again after?
No, never. I don't. No, never. I don't think so.
Like I have some days where it's like, and if you haven't had this experience yet, where you'll have a moment where you're like, God, I really wish this could just be someone else's problem. Like when the buck stops with you, like sometimes you're like, I wish I could say this is above my pay grade and like someone else could deal with it. But when I get that moment where I'm like, oh, I should just go get a job, I'm like, no.
Yeah, no, it's weird because like on some level there's a lot of challenges and a lot of things that I didn't know come with the territory in terms of running your own business, in terms of being the janitor and the CEO. But I just had my daughter recently, and just having the freedom and flexibility to make my own schedule. I'm in court at a certain time. I'm meeting with clients on a particular day. I schedule my week in a way that I can I like jogging, playing soccer. So I literally do everything that I love every day. And
I'm like even worse than you, because being like a practicing, like going to court was like too much for me. I was like, oh, the judge is telling me where I have to be and when I have to be there. But no, I can really appreciate that. And I think that's a big reason that a lot of people want to have their own practice, is to have more control and freedom and flexibility. And so I'm really glad to hear that is working out that way for you. So talk a little bit about sort of your journey to getting here, right? So you like you said, you were an assistant district attorney. You did that for a few years. And what were some of like the steps that you took to make the transition from, working for someone else to having your own firm? Because like everyone's a little bit different. Some people have like a very well executed plan, and some people are like, today's the day. I quit and I have a law firm now. What was your deal with that?
I think going into the DA's office, I always knew that I had a plan in terms of I'm going to learn what I need to learn and try to transition into my own practice. I After leaving the DA's office, I did work at another law firm for a short period of time, doing a lot of immigration work and criminal defense. So I kind of like during that whole time, I mean, I was always planning and preparing for that next step. I even made business cards of my firm that didn't exist and with my name and the word partner and like, like all these, with a fake office address to kind of motivate myself every day. I wrote down names of my firm or potential names of my firm. And so I always had the vision for it. And, one thing I always knew was that whatever I was doing, I was trying to make sure that I could learn and get proficient at it so that when I got out, I was able to kind of use that experience to kind of, build my own practice. So I always was kind of doing that and taking pride and like I wasn't going through the motions. I guess what I'm trying to say is that whenever I was doing something, I was trying to be purposeful in terms of trying to figure out, okay, how can I use this? Okay, what can I learn? What don't I know how to do that I think would be useful to my community and to my audience? And I always wanted to get into immigration work, and even though I was at the DA's office and I was, in trial bureau and in narcotics and gangs units, going to an immigration firm, I was able to kind of learn that practice, which was really useful for me, being, first generation Haitian American, and, just being someone who is also a world traveler and I know folks from, different countries. I always thought that that would be a useful way to be a servant to my community in some kind of way.
Well, and that like intersection of criminal law and immigration is, I think, some of like the most legally complex of those two, right? That's when I was practicing immigration law, that was the part that I did. I did a lot of removal defense, and
Right.
most of the individuals that I was representing had some contact with the criminal justice system as well. So it's a really, I think, like legally interesting
Yeah.
part as well for that. And so I'm hearing like there was a lot of, on the legal side, like thought and care into like how will this translate into me being able to, adequately represent clients in the future. What about like the business side? I'm always so interested in hearing about this part because unless you like went out of your way to learn about that stuff in law school, like they didn't teach you. It wasn't like a required class or anything. So were you like learning about that or thinking about that before, or has that been more like on the job as you go?
50-50. On some level, both my parents are entrepreneurs. My mom was a VP of a nonprofit organization for a long time, but then opened a restaurant in Long Island.
How did I not know that? So what is it? What restaurant is it?
Paradise Caribbean Restaurant in West Babylon, New York. It's in Suffolk County in Long Island. If you guys are around, come get a plate. And my father, he owns his taxi medallion. And so he's been driving cab and kind of running his own cab business since 1990, I believe. So, I mean, like my dad has always been an entrepreneur. He always used to say, if I don't work, I don't get paid. Your mom, she goes to work. But, so I kind of always had that. I guess I had role models that were kind of already doing it. I also helped my mom. I helped her file her LLC when she opened her restaurant. I didn't represent her, but I helped her with certain. She had certain hearings. She was trying to get parking variances from towns and different things. So I learned a lot, I think, about the marketing piece, and just the day-to-day nuts and bolts of running a business and seeing how much work it is. My mom works 7 days a week. She's.
Had you put together like a business plan, like written it out? Yeah.
Yeah, I put it together. I basically helped her put it together. We sat down and we mapped everything out. And it was a lot. There were a lot of challenges in that too. So she got sued. Lots of things happened. She invested a lot of money in one location. It didn't work out. So I feel like I learned a lot. But then again, I'm also the first attorney in my family. So, I didn't really I do have mentors, but the thing with mentors is tough too because they're busy. A lot of my mentors are very, well-known guys that I try not to trouble them too much and call them too much unless it's something serious. So I've learned that I have to learn a lot of things on my own. Obviously, it's important if I don't know something in the business, from a business perspective, I do make a phone call and see what information I can get, and obviously do my own research. But
Yeah.
there are challenges in being the first attorney in your family, in your community, that make it really tough.
Well, I think you have one good thing going in that having your parents both be entrepreneurs, maybe you got a little bit more support in opening your own practice. Like I know, my mom actually had like small businesses throughout, but my dad has been in government work most of his life, and they were supportive. But I hear that a lot from friends who want to start their own businesses or other lawyers, where it was like their parents were like, get a real job, like and so at least like they understand that that it is a real job, and it is a fulfilling. That's like one good thing I think that's going to come out of 2020 is that I can stop explaining to people that my job's not fake just because I do it all online. Like, oh yeah, like we can do things online that aren't like fake.
You were ahead of the curve with the Zooms.
That's what I've been saying. I was like, I was using Zoom before it was cool.
Right. Honestly, I remember when I first signed up with Vinco, I was like, or when I first heard about Vinco, I was talking to Adam, and I was like, so you never met her? You never saw her in person? He's like, no. I was like, I don't know about that, but you were really ahead of the curve, to be honest.
And then you did see me in person, and you were like, oh my God, that girl's so short.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I think Adam warned me too. He's like, she's really short.
The first time I met him and you and Dwayne, I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So actually, like speaking of Vinco, one of the things that I want to ask you about, and we'll come back to business stuff, I'm sure, is just about bar prep. Obviously, you know that my market, my community is law students and people taking and retaking the bar exam, right? And so would you share a little bit about your own bar exam journey? Because that's the whole point of this series, is for people to see that like there is life beyond the bar exam and that it's just a stepping stone. And even if your journey to getting beyond the bar exam is, a little unorthodox or takes a little bit longer, like you can still be so successful like you are. So I think if you're willing to share a little bit of your story, that'd be so helpful for people to hear.
Yeah, I took the bar exam 4 times. I did pass on my 4th time. 4th time's a charm. It was difficult for me. I mean, it was very humbling. That journey was tough for me. I was, someone who did very well in school. I was in top of my law school class, always was kind of an A student. So, it was very humbling. It was tough. I was really close literally every time I took the exam, which was crazy. I think the 3rd time I missed it by like 3 points, which is pretty crazy. So, it was one of those things where I just had to kind of humble myself. Obviously, worked with a great tutor, Carrie Ann, actually.
One of mine. I know everyone who is doing the series was my student, but that's just because I was doing it by myself for a long time. And then now the newer people, they haven't quite gotten as far in their career yet. So they're not opening their own practices yet and doing that stuff yet. But yes, Gil was one of mine. But I think you just said something that I want to highlight and maybe have you expand a little bit on, which is that like smart has nothing to do with it, with the bar exam. And like your journey was so much here, right? Like it becomes after the first time you don't pass, it totally shifts the landscape with the bar exam. And like from what I could see, and obviously you can explain more, that was the wall that you kept coming up against, was the mental mindset piece of it.
Most definitely. I think for me, the substantive part was not, I knew the law. It was just that I was in my own way a lot of the time in terms of mindset. I had a lot of things going on in my personal life that were kind of holding me down or holding me back. And, I had to kind of really change the way that I thought and approached the exam. and just how I approach my life. I honestly feel like I think I'm always pretty positive, but when I lost my confidence after failing and struggling with the exam, um, I had to kind of rediscover that kind of positivity and that mental strength. So I spent a lot of time doing a lot of, I guess, non-conventional things to kind of get me mentally and emotionally prepared to deal with the process of studying for the exam.
I mean, and you had like the what I call the pile-on going because you also like you wanted to leave your job at the time too, and you were ready to start
Right.
this next chapter. And so it all felt so connected. And like if I can't knock down this one pin, like I'm totally stuck here. And like watching your evolution from when I first met you to like today, I probably say this in every video we do together. It's like you're in some ways like a completely different person, right? It was almost like you came back. It was like who you were when I first met you, and then through that journey, like there was like a low in there, and then circling back to like being able to leave that job, being able to start this firm. Like when I think about like life beyond the bar exam, like you are probably the first person who I think of because of the profound impact that it had on not just, hey, now I passed the bar exam, but like now I can start to put the whole plan for the rest of my life in place. And I just think that's so encouraging. I post a lot about, like you see, I post on social media, but one thing always during results, I'm always posting about like, hey, just because you're seeing a lot of messages of everyone passing the bar exam, like doesn't mean you're the only person who failed. Like, and like being able to see people on that journey and then being able to show them, hey, like look at Gil, not because he passed the bar exam and like you didn't and feel shame about that. Like look at Gil and feel like he did it, I can do it, right? Like he had this journey and now look at where he is. Like that's a model for success. And like you're absolutely like you're 1,000% that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Getting
And I
all
think the
emotional.
key thing, one of the big things about Vinco that I think is very positive and helps students that are going through it, especially repeat takers, is the community and being able to hear stories. I remember, I think we did a call recently with Renee, and I remember Renee on one of the Saturday calls,
That's
talking.
how long she's been coming to do these with
Right,
me. Yeah.
and I'm telling you, I don't know what it was, but something about her story and the way she articulated it, it just it gave me a lot of motivation. And I just think that being able to see other people who are going through similar things, it is a very isolating feeling sometimes to be studying for the bar exam. You're not in law school anymore. A lot of your law school friends have moved on and, are doing things and you're online seeing it. It can have an effect on you, but to be in a community of people who are trying to encourage you and tell you that you can do it, and helping you like tailor it a program specifically to your needs and trying to assess what your issues are as opposed to a boilerplate like program, Barbary or it's kind of like a one size fits all approach to it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like I've been talking about this a lot recently with like the start of bar prep and all of that, which is that there's nothing wrong with like the bar prep programs and a one size fits all approach. But what people don't realize is that those who pass on the first time are doing the tailoring themselves. Like they're making adjustments. I passed 3 bar exams the first time, and none of those times did I just follow the bar prep company. I was taking that and making it my own. So I think that's really important, like to think about how what we see online and what we hear from people like may not always be what's going on behind the scenes. But I have one more bar prep question for you is if you could give like one piece other than hiring Vinco, of course, if you could give one piece of advice to people watching about the bar exam, what would you tell them?
Um, you have to do the 3,000 questions is very key. There's a certain thing about getting reps, certain number of reps in terms of the questions, the question types, doing things and like trying to simulate realistic test day conditions is key to timing, getting your timing right. Use a timer. If you're going to handwrite your exam, I used to create booklets. I would take loose leaf and staple them together. Like everything that you can do to make it as real as possible, I think really helps. That and just get the mindset together. It's just really important. I know I keep saying it, but I know it really made a difference for me. And I think that was the only difference in all the times I took the bar exam, was that my mindset changed.
I think that was for sure the biggest thing there. And that's why I like to have people come and talk, because like there's one thing like me telling you that, and then it was you hearing it from Renee, right? Whereas like then every time I said it after that, like I had more credibility because you heard it from someone who actually had that experience, which is now what you provide for people as well.
Definitely.
I want to shift back to the law practice for a couple of questions, which is, now let's think about like a law student who is like, yeah, I want to have my own firm, maybe doing the same type of law that Gil's doing. What things, if anything, do you feel like you did in law school? Like we kind of talked about how you were setting yourself up for success once you started practicing and like how you were doing that. But is there anything that you did in law school to get this ball in motion that you think has been helpful for you now that you're in your own firm?
Yeah, most definitely. I've always been kind of a teach yourself kind of person. So I think being on law review, or if you can be on a law journal, it's helpful to be able to do the research. There's something about building something from scratch, because a lot of times in the law, there is no clear cut answer. And sometimes a case has a complicated set of facts, and you just have to figure out how to answer complicated questions, or maybe not necessarily answer it outright, but be able to wrestle with that issue and kind of think critically, because that's what it's all about. Also, being on law clinic was very important. I mean, I know I went to Southern University Law Center, very proud of that school, and HBCU as well. And their law clinic was, we had a heavy caseload because Louisiana furloughed a lot of the public defender's offices. So we got a lot of cases. I had felony cases as a law clinic student. And I did a suppression hearing, got a firearm suppressed. I think I was like the first student in the clinic's, I believe it was in the clinic's history,
Wow.
that had gotten a suppression hearing on a firearm. And, so I had a lot of good experience working with clients, so there's that. Also the relationships. I think in law school, I went to law school in Louisiana. A lot of my friends are in Houston and, like Georgia, Texas area. But, still that network of people still to this day help me out. We still figure out ways to collaborate with each other. And if you can be in a law school community that's helpful, I think that's good as well. Law school in general, just learning how to think like a lawyer and think critically and put things together. IRAC, like I still IRAC. I IRAC everything. I IRAC
Right. Right, you do.
literally everything in my life. So it's like it's critical.
It must be a joy for the people. At least your partner's a lawyer too, so that's probably not super annoying to her. My husband's always like, "Don't lawyer me with that train of thought."
It's important, and so there's a lot of value. There's always something you can learn, whatever you're doing. I mean, those are the things I did, but you just have to look at it as, how can I use this as a means to that end that you're trying to reach.
I mean, you were so like thoughtful about all of it that you might not have an answer to this question, and that's fine. But is there anything that you wish you had done differently in law school? If you could kind of go back to set you up for like where you are today, like any class that you might have taken or connection you would have tried to make or anything like that?
Um, I don't know. I feel like my law school community was very close and tight knit. At my school, I think I was very involved. It was like I was a very involved student. Like I was on moot court, I was on law review, I was on everything. I did it. Like I feel like I got the most. It was one of the first times where I felt like I tapped into my school community and got the most out of it. Maybe I would have taken more time for self-care. I don't think I took care of myself. I was just so focused on this goal and trying to, reach this mark, that sometimes I didn't enjoy things. I didn't go to barrister's ball. I think I went to the last year I went. I didn't even stay long, but I
Me
didn't
too. I didn't go to the first year. I went to the last one, and I was like, I'm so
go.
exhausted. This isn't even fun.
Yeah, I don't think I had enough fun. I was in Baton Rouge. I did do things for Mardi Gras and hang out when we could. You know, but I would have did a few more things, you know, probably would have went to Bayou Classic and like, you know, because Louisiana is like a very fun state and has a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
cultural like traditions.
That's often my advice. I had to learn that lesson in college. So I mean, I think you know this, but I teach college. Yeah, of course you know this. You came to my classes this semester. I teach, for those of you who don't know this, I also teach college level classes, and sometimes I teach freshmen. And they often like ask me this question, and that's always my answer to them is have more fun, because I was like such a serious student, and I'm not saying to the detriment of academics, but like I had kind of figured that out by the time I got to law school. So I had a little bit more fun in law school than I did in college. But
I would say
there,
self-care. That's what I'll say.
yeah,
Self-care.
it's important. I would agree with that, because even though I had more fun, I definitely was burning out the same. So across the board. So I have two more questions. One is going to be very easy. That's the last one. So this one might be a little bit more difficult, which is I want you to talk directly to someone who is really unhappy in their job and wants to start their own thing, but they feel stuck. Like maybe they feel like they can't do it. Maybe they feel like they don't have the know-how, or maybe they feel like they don't know where to start. Like, what can you tell that person to like encourage them to keep moving forward and to go for it?
Wow. Your job, you should use it as a means to an end. A job isn't the job you do isn't necessarily who you are. I mean, I know I had a lot of, you know, like moral like issues, you know, feeling like, you know, I was in the wrong place doing the wrong thing. And that mattered to me. But what you do is not always who you are. And you have, and try to always have a purpose behind what you're doing. So, you know, if you're, whatever industry you're in, whatever you know field you're in, get the most out of it and see what. Sit down, literally take a notepad and identify what can I learn from this job that's useful. Is it Can I learn how to write motions? Can I learn how to improve my skill set in the courtroom and litigate? Is it my interpersonal skills in the office space and being able to work with others and people from different communities and cultures? Sometimes you just have to learn about yourself. Do you know knowing when to humble yourself and when to stand up for yourself, right? You know, like there's a lot of things you can learn about yourself in that time. Also, if you're on a job that you hate, make sure you do other things that you love so that you can take care of yourself, so you can survive the moment. And then one of the most important things is, again, open that notepad and plan out your next move. And make that next move your best move. If you're gonna do something, you know, if you're gonna open your own business, you can't just, it's not gonna happen like this. It's not gonna happen by sitting on the couch and just talking about it. You have to figure out what you need. You have to lay out all the nuts and bolts, figure out what you need to get to that point. If it's an amount of money saved, if it's a loan, if it's you know, whatever it might be, you need to start doing that. I remember the office space that I have now. I remember going to this office space and checking it out with a colleague of mine from the DA's office, like maybe two years ago. And we're like, I don't know, maybe whatever. And it just so happened that when I was looking for an office space now, I'm back at this place and they've gotten a new facility and the office is much better. And I found myself in the place that I was looking for since the beginning, like since 2 years ago, you
You
know.
like manifested an office space, like
Yeah, and it's just, you know, you'd be surprised. Like you have to, at that time I had those fake business cards printed up in my wallet that I would just look at every day and be like, you know, one day I'm gonna have my own business. And so, you know, just be purposeful with what you're doing. You know, the slogan at my law school, which I'm gonna rep again, is seriousness of purpose. So like, you know, it's important to like be purposeful with what you're doing. As long as you're setting those intentions and you're working towards it, I don't see why it can't happen for you. Just you have to get out of your own way and start working. Like you have to identify what you can get out of the opportunity, because the job you hate is still an opportunity. I'm still thankful for the opportunity that Darcel Clark gave me, you know, to be at the DA's office. And whether or not I enjoyed it all the time, it's not what it's about. The people I met, I'm still in touch with a lot of my friends.
The
for the
people
DA.
you met through your experience.
You know, and so I don't think I met. I think one of the reasons why I even have my family now is because of the DA's office on some level,
Yeah.
because fiance was working, you know, at a rival organization, you know, in the same area. So we used to get lunch all the time. Like, you know, there's always an opportunity in whatever you're doing. You just have to shift your perspective, because the woe is me is not going to help you get through that moment. And then don't get me wrong, I had the blues. I was pissed off. I was unhappy. And I had my negative moments too. It's okay to complain. It's okay to vent, but
Yeah.
it's not okay to let that lead to
To
inaction.
live there, right? You can't take up residence like in that space. So, well, I am sure, I can't speak for them, but I'm sure that your alma mater is as proud of you as you are of them, because it sounds like you really live like in the principles and things that they taught you based on what you've been saying. So I promise I would save the easiest question for last, which is just tell everyone how they can get in contact with you. Like, where can they find you on social media? What's your website? I'll post it all as well, but let them know.
Sure. On Instagram at G Bayonne. My law firm is the Bayonne Firm. Our website is thebayonnefirm.com. You can reach me. Our office number is 929-333-6497. You can reach me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at G Bayonne Esquire, ESQ. I'm also on Facebook, Gilbert S. Bayonne. So you guys can reach me, you know,
I'm
wherever.
anywhere.
Google me. I don't know. I'm on there somewhere. So you guys can reach me.
Now accepting clients, right? So
Accepting new clients, you know, young students, if you know, need someone to, I don't have all, you know, I don't have all day, but, you know, if you reach out, I'm here to help. You know, if you need someone to talk to give you a little bit of advice, I'm here for it.
well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with me today. I always love catching up with you. And for those of you who are watching, make sure you come back for next week's edition of Beyond the Bar Exam.